Welcome to the AI Optimized podcast, the show where we sit down each week with entrepreneurs to explore their journey, their decisions, and the systems they're building to create smarter, more efficient businesses. Today I'm joined by Paul Kealey, founder and CEO of EkoBuild, based just west Ottawa. Paul didn't just start in construction, he spent many years as a high school teacher while looking for a home for himself. He realized something important. Most houses were not healthy to live in. That moment changed his path. He started with log homes, learned hard lessons about energy use, and eventually built a company focused on passive, prefabricated homes. Today, Paul works at the intersection of health, affordability, and long term housing solution. Paul, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Charles. It's great to be on.
Yes, we already talked. I think it's gonna be a good podcast. You have a lot to show us about what you do because I think it's exceptional. But I want to start really slowly by where you start. You spend many years as a high school teacher before becoming an entrepreneur, and it's completely different. How did that part of your life shape the way you think today?
Well, I've always been a health advocate. Right from a young age, playing sports, I just felt healthy when I was in really good shape, when my body was in really good shape and had a clear mind, clear head,
Mm-hmm.
and naturally led me to wanting to be a physical education teacher. So I went to school, ended up receiving a Bachelor of Science degree and getting a full time teaching position right out of school, which at the time I thought I had made it. 23 years old, full time teaching position. Teacher salaries were increasing at the time, so I felt it was right time to go out and buy a house. But it seemed like any new home or even existing house that I went into, something was up with the home. Just didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
right. And I felt the new homes, they were, let's say, less drafty than the older homes on the market, but really poor air quality. Where the older homes seem to have a lot better air quality, but at the same time always required some type of major renovation in order to make the house energy efficient, which I would have done, but limited cash at the time and
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want to go there with a renovation and didn't really feel comfortable like my investment would have been protected with a newer home. So I really felt that the house, um, there was a great business opportunity with respect to creating a healthy home company, something that was really missing. And I've always been business minded. My parents are both self-employed. I was self-employed myself, which ultimately funded my way through school, and really felt driven to more pursue a business as opposed to stay high school teacher. I really felt I could contribute more at that level,
Yeah.
and really did start to do all the research, like you said. I had originally ventured into the log home world. I just felt that a home built with non-manufactured materials, maybe that was your best version of a healthy home. And that was the case. I started a log home company, and the homes were very healthy. But that was back in 2006. By the time 2012 rolled around, I feel was the time. This time period was when North America started to go through our energy crisis at the time, and energy has increased 300, 400% since 2008, the way that I can remember. Doesn't matter what fuel, electricity, gas, wood even has increased 3 to 4 times in cost. So, in 2012, log homes, I felt had a big problem from an energy usage perspective, even though they were very healthy homes to live in. And at that time is basically when I reevaluated the question, what is the best sustainable home? And researched all the different construction models to build, stumbled across Passive House, and found out that it was ultimately the world's most energy efficient home, but also the world's most healthy house, in the sense that a passive house is the only type of home that you can build that guarantees healthy indoor air quality, also guarantees a mold proof interior environment. And mold is the single biggest problem with newer homes today. We hear from time and time again, our customers moved into a new home because they felt it would be a healthier home. And unfortunately, that's not the case. The old farmhouse down the street that's 100 years old is a healthier house than the way newer homes are built.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned a lot of things to that questions, but I want to start by, because I'm really amazed by what you've done. I don't think many people can go from a profession that you're paid with the salary and it's safe, like education and be a teacher, to an entrepreneur that resolve problem, and you're on your own at this point because you're not sure if you're gonna make it. In there's a risk somewhere, and that's why I was wondering that maybe you had that little touch of entrepreneurship in your life, because I don't think many people can do that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think definitely there's that solid component.
Mm-hmm.
So the work ethic, and for me it stems back to my parents being self-employed. Also, a number of uncles were self-employed, and but at the end of the day, if you're driven by passion and you're willing to work, I
Mm-hmm.
think even though that risk is always there, it's kind of in the background. I don't think I
Yeah.
appreciated the risk really at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but just knew that naturally being hardworking, it would take me through and hopefully end up successful. But at the same time, I think uh, today I think would I go back and put all of that work in to create a company, I think I would do it all over again. But
Oh yeah.
there is a big, yeah, for sure, a bit, a big risk. I don't think I appreciated it at the time.
No, and for sure, what I really want to know, and people maybe want to know as well, um, because it's all started by a problem you saw from yourself by buying a house that wasn't the perfect healthier house you wanted. So, did you see a business opportunity right away, or you were just trying to solve a personal problem?
I was just trying, ultimately to solve a personal problem to begin with.
Mhm. Yeah.
I ended up moving out to doing some research, figuring out that over half of the log home companies in all of North America, this is a crazy stat. Over half of the log home companies are located in not only Canada, but British Columbia at the time.
Okay.
So that's where I just felt it was right to move and learn from the best. I
Mhm.
worked for a dozen companies in a very small 2-year window and gained all the knowledge I felt I needed to really come back and build a house. But when I first came back, built a house, and I actually went back into teaching at an occasional level to help pay the bills and to give it a second shot. But I was so immersed in the really the passion of providing healthy home opportunities that I worked on trying to get as many contracts as possible. Took a while starting the business. ultimately taught at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
but really knew and felt that my passion was more towards the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at even like personally, when we look at the basic necessities of life, food, water, shelter, I felt that being involved with shelter houses, as long as I did it right, or we did it right as a company, we were going to have a successful business model. And really felt there was a big need with providing healthy homes. Unfortunately, most of the world doesn't appreciate or understand how unhealthy our homes it can be, and can be affecting our lives. We
Mm-hmm.
spend 90, especially us as Canadians, right? We can appreciate, we spend 90 to 95% of our time indoors. So if
That's
we're
for
in
sure.
an
Because of the
unhealthy
winter,
living,
we talked about the winter earlier before the podcast. It's really cold here. So yeah, we spend a lot of time in our home. It's really important.
oh yes, and yeah. So if we're not in a healthy space,
Mm-hmm.
big impacts can be put onto your health. And when I learned all this stuff back in 2012, this was really you know, the information, all I needed to hear to know I was going to be in this business for a long time. We developed our passive house product line, starting working towards that in 2012. Took us a few years really to get our system in place. Built our first demonstration passive house in 2017. That was a bit of a different home. It was a 3,000 square foot house that we built for less than $200 a square foot in 2017, and then COVID happened.
Mm.
Cost of living is significantly higher now. So our recent demonstration home, even still a four-bedroom house, but built to dominate affordability. So it was built closer to 1,600 square feet. So a reduction in
Okay.
square footage. And what our mission is now is to ultimately to provide certified passive house systems, and that we ship right across North America, so that any individual, any family with a reasonable budget to build can afford to build passive, because we need healthy building
Mm-hmm.
systems that are affordable. If they're not affordable, no one's going to be able to build it. So that's really been our focus, is making a proven certified passive house as affordable as possible.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I love what you're building right now, and I mean, your vision is really clear. You know where you're going, and also you said I already always knew that is the right path for me and it's the right project. But sometimes, even as an entrepreneur, Paul, I'm sure that you're gonna understand what I mean. You at some point you asking yourself some question, because you do also some testing if it's working or not, and sometimes it's not working, and it's not working, and before it started to work and get benefits, it can take some times, and you learn about it, so it's not really always easy. And in your case, you started with log homes because they felt healthier, but later you realize also they had limits, like you talked. But how difficult was it to accept that your first idea wasn't the final solution?
Yeah, for me personally, it's always been big picture. So
Mm-hmm.
what should the world be like if we were a truly healthy, sustainable society from a building perspective? And sometimes the word sustainability, I don't like using it, right? Because it's overused. It's kind of lost its context. But at the end of the day, it comes down to survival. We're only going to survive as people, as a world, if the world is sustainable. A lot of unsustainable things are, happening in the world, and oil is, of course, the biggest one. We need to focus on renewables rather than non-renewables. But from a health perspective, sustainability is needs to be there at this conversation, so that people realize what we're actually talking about. We're talking about survival, and if we're going to survive, our health is number one, and we need to be in environments that ultimately don't put our bodies into a situation where we can't control our future. We need to be in a situation where we have the control. The world
Mm-hmm.
needs to be in a situation where the world can consciously take care of itself. And if we keep polluting our environment, we're not going to be able to live in a healthy future. I think we've learned a lot, and the world is moving towards a sustainable future. Over 250 countries in the world now have committed to net zero with mandated legislation. So the world is on track to be net zero by 2050. Now, when I think about this from a building code perspective, the codes aren't changing realistically fast enough to allow houses to all be built in a net zero fashion by 2050. The transition. All builders are going to have to transition towards this level, which is going to
Mm-hmm.
require most builders to do things significantly different than they're doing now. So net zero ready codes, building codes, really need to be mandated a lot sooner. I would hope by the next time the code changes, which will be around the year 2030, that these rules are put in place, because we need to change, and the homes aren't going to be affordable unless they're net zero. Homes aren't
Exactly.
going to be healthy unless they're built to
Mm-hmm.
passive house standards. So if we really want to live affordably into the future, we need to care, and if we really care, we need to change. But we need to change by putting regulations in place that are going to ultimately force builders to do that change.
Mm-hmm. I love it how you say it, because you talk about change, and this podcast it's all about change. Because and there's the difficulty sometimes with construction. The industry itself doesn't want to change, or is changing a little bit slowly. So I think you have a mindset, a completely different mindset that most of the entrepreneur in this industry. And by that I mean your project is completely different than the others of the most construction. And the mentality sometimes is not about taking care of what we build, is to build it fast and it costs way less. And that's a mentality we see with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people in construction. But in your case, I want you to describe about EkoBuild in simple words to someone who has never heard of it, because we talked about what you do, how you bring EkoBuild um, here, but I really want to have a descript. I really want you to describe EkoBuild in simple words for people who never heard of it.
For sure. So the simple one word is passive house. So people need to do their research on passive house. But what is a passive home? It doesn't sound very simple, because it is a building model based around construction or building science. But with respect to EcoBuilt, we are all about providing the most affordable certified passive house. But a passive house, in simple terms, to break it down, is a combination of a number of items that are put together to make a working system from a house perspective. Airtightness is the single biggest component. So homes need to be built airtight so that we have control over our indoor air environment, or our indoor living environment. So airtightness, number one. Insulation, number two. Insulation is not effective unless it's in an airtight system. Number three would be high performance windows and doors. So windows that ultimately let the sunlight in, where you
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity to use that sunlight as a free source of heat, meaning the windows on the southern side of the home, and the windows in general around the house also have to be designed in a way where they're reflecting heat back to the inside of the home in the
Mm-hmm.
wintertime, or reflecting heat away from the home in the summer months. That would be number three. Number four is ventilation. So ventilation, we need to be able to, of course, exhaust the house to remove stale air, to remove any toxins that could be developing or end up in your living space. But ventilation is only healthy if it's filtered right, and it's only energy efficient if it comes with a high degree of heat recovery ventilation. So ultimately, we put machines into the home that can extract up to 90% of the energy from the stale air that's leaving the home, so 90% of the heat energy, and directly transform that heat energy to the incoming cold air. So it's very interesting, at minus 15 degrees Celsius, at
Mm-hmm.
90% efficiency, the fresh air coming into the living spaces, coming into the bedrooms and living rooms, is at approximately 17 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is why the whole building doesn't need much energy to keep itself heated with a fresh air system. So high heat
Okay.
recovery ventilation is very important. So I'll just summarize those: air tightness, insulation, high performance windows and doors that can reflect heat and allow the free energy from the sun into the home, and high heat recovery ventilation.
Mm-hmm. That's why I wanted to for you to explain what you're building right now, because it's amazing. It's a different way of thinking, like you said. But still, construction has a little bit. I mean, the past years, construction industry still not the same I was in the past. Still changing, but slowly. But in your case, for how many years you're in construction right now, Paul?
Almost 25 years, and
25 years.
we've been doing passive house for about 10. But I think the single biggest component I should add to that list,
Mm-hmm.
apart from air tightness, is the vapor open qualities of the home. And this is ultimately the problem with the way most homes are built, and
Okay.
is a problem with the building code. So the reason why a passive house is considered a mold-free home is because it's vapor open. There's a lot of, so vapor meaning moisture. Moisture is the enemy for both
Yeah,
deteriorating a house and
that's for sure.
deteriorating your health. And a passive house protects against this by ultimately having it a prerequisite for homes to be what's called hygrothermically protected, houses that are dissipating moisture. So there's a lot of moisture in construction materials to begin with that needs
Mm-hmm.
to be allowed to escape. And there's always residual moisture that ends up in the building envelope, the weather tight shell of your house. And this moisture needs to be allowed to escape. And if it doesn't escape, it has no choice but to lead to mold.
Mm-hmm.
And so vapor open is the way you want to build. So anyone out there listening, like thinking of building a house or might build one into the future, when you're interviewing builders, ask your builder these questions: how your house is going to be built so that it's vapor open, and how is your indoor air quality going to be kept healthy? How can you build a house so that it's guaranteed not to mold? These are very important questions to ask a builder.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And for 25 years in this industry, you still have a lot of experience. But did you feel what feels most difficult in the construction industry today compared to the past?
Well, the biggest thing in construction today is I think the affordability component. So building materials have skyrocketed since COVID. Labor has skyrocketed. Our labor, for example, has increased 35% since the outset of COVID. Just it's new cost of living, and so ultimately skilled labor has gone up in cost. and you want skilled labor building your house, and the materials as well. So our biggest thing that we focus on is that affordability component. Now we have to be very careful though, not to compromise the health of the home, not to compromise the
Mm-hmm.
strength of the home, because homes need to be built stronger. Uh, I'm in Ottawa. We've had four tornadoes in Ottawa the past 10 years. And before 10 years ago, I think maybe there's been one or two tornadoes in the entire history, documented history of Ottawa. And this would be similar, I think, for people in any area. You know, when you think of the weather, the changing weather patterns, whether they're floods, forest fires, higher winds, homes need to be built stronger. So we don't compromise on the strength of the home, but really focusing from an engineering perspective,
Mm-hmm.
reducing as many materials as possible, and providing the overall most affordable home at the end of the day. So that's the single biggest important factor in construction. And this leads to big problems
Mm-hmm.
with conventional buildings, because the goal of most developers, most builders, is to provide the cheapest house possible.
Exactly.
And the fear there is if a house isn't built to a particular construction model, where you have no guaranteed result, the cheapest house is always going to be that house that is not only the unhealthiest house you can buy, but the weakest house you can buy, and is going to have problems, and is going to create a lot of
Mm-hmm.
renovation situations for people into the future, which is going to take a lot of cash. The only way you can avoid or put yourself into a situation where you don't have that cash outlay is build a house that's not going to require a renovation or a retrofit into the future. So build
Exactly.
past.
And the funny thing about it is that it's cheaper at the beginning, but in the long term vision, it costs way more because you do reparation and it's not optimal. So you at the end you pay much for the building, and we hear that a lot. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs in this industry. They're saying the same, and I'm really grateful to talking to entrepreneur with the right values and the right vision to building homes. It's really important. But with that, in your case, how have the rising construction costs changed the way people talk to you about building a home?
Well, the conversation is a lot of time, how can I have a 3 or 4 bedroom house for a particular budget. And the
Mm-hmm.
budget involves, for a new home, it involves a number of components: building permit expenses, the actual house cost, land development costs, and cost of land itself. So one of the other, problems in building is cost of land has also risen, anywhere from 30% to 100% compared to 5 to 10 years ago, because of scarcity a lot of the time. So focusing on optimizing a house for someone with a number of cost savings features to build the most affordable houses is what we try to focus on from a design perspective. So there's a lot of things at the house that can be done to reduce cost. A minimalistic approach to design would be that guiding principle. So building houses with lower slope roofs as opposed to steeper, more triangular gable roof systems that would have dominated traditional construction. And for example, a low slope roof might be around 5 degrees roof slope. You can still put a steel roofing on the home that drains water away from the building and meets all the strength factors that the building needs to operate. But the difference is, compared to a more steeper gable roof, is almost a 30 to 40% savings in materials and labor when it comes to that roof system. So
Mm-hmm.
really, minimalistic approach to design from a roof line perspective, Also minimizing or eliminating hallways in houses. So sometimes houses have a lot of hallway space, whether it be connected to walk-in closets or more expansive floor plan arrangements. So minimizing hallway spaces and minimizing storage. Sometimes people will add a basement just for the reasons of storage or a large utility room. A passive house is known to provide utility spaces as small as 20 to 25 square feet. So we can really eliminate a lot of unwanted space that is connected to a traditional utility room. Also being created with storage, creating storage shelves above closets, washrooms, laundry, and utility spaces where storage items, Tupperware bins, can be put up off of the floor into these storage components. And that eliminates building the basement for simple reasons of storage and allows a family to really condense the footprint. We've also found a trend moving forward by eliminating a washroom space. So most houses that are 2 bedrooms or more would have two full washrooms and a powder room traditionally. But taking the second washroom, that second full washroom, and dividing the toilet from the shower space, ultimately would connect a toilet to that washroom and also separate the toilet room into its own independent powder room. So, you might think, or someone might think, big deal, you're only saving about 30 square feet there, eliminating the powder room. But when homes are costing $300 to $400 a square foot to build now, that's a lot of money saved.
Exactly.
Simply by connecting the powder room to a secondary bedroom.
And like you said, some people just don't know about it, and because they're not in the industry, they don't comprehend it. And by the way, I just want to say, Paul, that we see clearly that you've been a teacher before, because you explain really well what you're doing with the right words. And for me, that I'm not in the industry. Yes, I do podcasts with entrepreneurs in this industry, but I can really understand how you operate. And what do you think people outside the industry, like myself before the podcast, don't fully understand about today's housing crisis?
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception, if I was to communicate it like this, with a new home, is that it's automatically a healthy home. And I remember a recent conversation I even had with a potential customer who was telling me their situation, and they always felt unhealthy in their house. They actually bought a new home. They didn't build a new home, but they bought a house that was less than 2 years old, and the opposite result happened to this family. And the mother of the family felt the worst. She actually was diagnosed with CIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome,
Okay.
ultimately an inflammatory condition as a result of mold. So she just found there's something that must be wrong with the home. So she did her research. She found out a type of test that could be done, and it's a mail-in biological test where they test the dust in the house. So she basically wiped down her counters, wiped down the floors wherever dust collected. The name of the test was the Hurts Me Too test. Anyone that's listening can email us. We'll direct you towards where you can do this test. But they found there were a number of different types of mold in the home and different types of toxins. And this led them to do the research of how do you build a healthy house. And they're on their route to building a passive house. So that's the single biggest misconception, is the new home is a healthy home. And the prettiest home, unfortunately, can be quietly poisoning the indoor air environment. But there's a lot of other toxins that can be in your house. Radon is a big one. I was talking to people not too long ago too who were telling me their radon levels were above 1,500. I think they were at 1,700 radon level, and that should be less than 100. So they put a mitigation system into their home, and they're down to 20 to 25 now. But again, wanting to build a house new with proper radon mitigation systems in place. Houses that have gas, carbon monoxide. There's a lot of silent killers in the home that you wouldn't know are there unless you become educated about it. And so, really happy you had me on here, Charles, to talk about this stuff.
Exactly.
Because it really needs to be known in the general building world.
That's for sure. And you talk about educating. You're not alone. You have a team, right? In your
That's
business.
correct.
Um, but you have all the knowledge. I mean, you built all this. On a normal day, where does the business still depend too much on you or on your knowledge?
Well, we have a lot of systems in place that
Hmm.
like take the weight off my shoulders now.
Okay,
I
sounds good.
personally involved mostly from a marketing communications perspective, sales as well with respect to customers. We have a YouTube channel though, Instagram channels, where we try to do a lot of videos around the educational component. But I'm really there for mostly communicating the benefits of the house. But from a passive house perspective, we try to communicate from an educational point of view, not a marketing point of view. It's most important in our minds. People build passive.
Yeah.
We try to provide the most affordable building system and provide it to anyone in North America. We include shipping right across North America in our standard package. But that said, if there's a passive house company in the same town where anyone is building, I would think they should be the most affordable option for anyone in that local area. But that's not the case most of the
Hmm.
time. And reason why we think of our market as a North American market, not just a Ottawa, Ontario market or an
Hmm.
Ontario market. And it's very simple for us to prefabricate passive house building systems and ship right across Canada, the United States. We send a supervisor with our package. That said, the weather-tight shell kit prefab package is only a part of the home. Anyone building is going to need the help of local tradespeople, but we are there for customer support, including acting as a building consultant, building advisor for all of our customers, so that they are connected to a source of information that's going to allow them to build their home properly, which is what we take a lot of pride in. And we need people to be aware that they can build this house
Hmm.
wherever they are.
But still, Paul, after all these years of building systems, where do things still feel slow or frustrating?
Well, I guess the main frustration comes from the building code, and
Okay.
the building code not evolving, and the policy that the governments have failed to put into place to really motivate and require these types of homes to be built. It's
Hmm.
in the government's best interest, especially in a country like Canada with a public healthcare system, to provide healthy houses. I think of the $1 million that are being spent in our public healthcare system on problems that could have easily been preventable just by being in guaranteed healthy living spaces. So we need to step up and solve those problems. Canada is a country that should benefit more from passive houses than the United States, or at least a significant part of the United States being in more or more more temperate extremes than Canada. But we have seen incentives come up in a lot of the states that haven't shown up in Canada yet. For example, in the state of Massachusetts is giving a $25,000 rebate to people who build passive. So a lot of our new customers are from Massachusetts. And when you do the general research on a passive house and just learn about all comfort benefits and the health benefits. For any one building, there really is no other house to comfortably build if it's going to guarantee your health and guarantee to protect your investments. But at a policy level, the building code needs to change so that everyone is going to be able to build
Mm-hmm.
healthy, and that's, that would be the biggest frustration.
Mm-hmm. It's the biggest frustration, that's for sure. But still, you're on a mission to make a difference, and you have your vision. And it's been 25 years that you're working on it. But when you think about the next 6 to 12 months, what needs to be solid before EcoBuild can grow further?
Well, we need more capability for manufacturing. So we've actually we've felt the increase in market in the past couple of years, and we have built our second factory. So we do have two factories now, only one in operation, but the other one will be in operation very soon. And we need to have more space to build more builders on our team to provide increased demand as we feel is coming. But right now, ultimately, we're in a position to produce 100 houses per year, and that's going to change to a couple hundred houses per year. Since 2017, we have over 1,000 passive houses out there because we do provide material packages to a lot of our customers who are able to hire a local carpenter to build the package from a materials and not require a prefabricated system. But most of our customers, so we do have the ability to supply a lot more houses from a material package perspective, but we do feel most of our customers want the prefab system since it's built in a controlled facility out of the weather. And once the prefab kit is on site, it only takes about 5 or 6 days to be weather tight. So a house that
Okay.
doesn't have to be built in the weather, essentially.
Wow, amazing. And it's time for the question that I ask for all my guests. Um, if you had a magic wand and you bless yourself with one thing that could change or instantly improve in your business tomorrow morning, what would it be and why?
If I had a magic wand, I would.
You
I'll
can
start
think
that
about
over.
it. It's okay.
If I had a magic wand, I would want everyone to wake up, just being consciously aware of their living situation and and consciously aware of their health, and put themselves into a position where they are living to maximize their own longevity. That would be, I think if that happened, if everyone was aware of their state of health and what they need to do to guarantee themselves living as long as possible, longevity, that would be the best. That would be the ultimate. Because if we are all educated and aware of what we need to do to maximize our own longevity, we're going to live different, we're going to build different, and we are not going to make decisions that affect our health in a negative manner. But in order to make those decisions that don't negatively affect our health, we have to be educated. We have to understand what is taking health or preventing us from living in an optimal, healthy state, and then make decisions that don't affect our health in a negative manner, but
Hmm.
decisions that are only there to maximize our longevity.
Hmm. That's amazing. And I want to talk a little bit more because I'm sure, Paul, I mean, for now it's been 25 years. You still have a lot of responsibility on your plate. even though maybe a little less than at the beginning, that's for sure. But which responsibility in your case would you personally want off your plate? First, though, first through automation.
Through automation, off of, I think of automation, it makes me think of a robotic factory
Mm-hmm.
that's able to take care of some components that we don't necessarily need a trained carpenter to take care of. But I think having systems in place that that are there to make the company run more efficient, of course. And when I think of company and what could be automated, what could be better, I I really always come back to the customer, right? What are decisions, those basic decisions that you need or anyone needs to do in their company to make the company better? The company, any company, is ultimately there to serve the customer, right? So what are some things that we could do to optimize the customer experience? So
Exactly.
I think, from an automation point of view, the first thing we work with our customers on is a proposal. Automated proposals would be great, but we just always feel there's a need for us as in the sales team to review those dollar figures, those cost figures, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can make sure we're giving our customers that accurate cost. But I think automated proposals, some automated design software would be good too to focus on standard items. We still, I think, default to our architectural
Mm-hmm.
technologists and architects that we have on staff to make sure that their eyes are on everything, so that there's no mistakes
Sure.
from a design perspective. But it would be nice if that could be optimized. And from a production point of view, moving into some optimization there into the future, I think, is inevitable. There are companies that are producing prefabricated systems using robotics, but it's very expensive to make that investment at this point in
Sure.
time. And it all comes back to the affordability for us. If we invested heavily in robotics, our homes would have to instantly increase significantly in cost.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes us away from our affordable business model. So I think that's dedicated, maybe in the future, 10 to 12 years from now. But having it in the back of our mind, having the big picture always of a self-sustainable world is what we think about.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that question, actually, because it's going to make me think of, I think that further on a daily basis. How can we
Exactly.
how can we
Au-
use automation tools?
Automation tools, and for sure, we're gonna talk about AI a little bit. Automation, it because it's innovation, and you have this mindset of innovate, and you talk about the customer size. The automation. Do you see AI realistically supporting that change without overcomplicating the business?
Absolutely. I don't, apart from Chat GPT, I don't fully understand, I think, the capabilities of AI. But yes, absolutely. I think it's going to be the way of the future. This isn't AI related, but automation related. I think of a cabinet maker we used to work with, a single independent
Mhm.
owner operator cabinet maker. Used to build everything by hand and took a lot of pride in that. But as the business developed, where ultimately he needed to make more money, this person he developed or started working with some of the automation tools they have there in the cabinetry world, and ultimately this person ended up at the end of their business having computer software cut all the cabinets and not have to do anything by hand anymore except for the
Mhm.
edge banding. and his business was revolutionized really though overnight with that one tool that was implemented, but took a lot of time. And I think we need to understand that the technology
Sure.
is there to help us and educate ourselves on it. And but I definitely need to learn more on that
Yeah,
level.
that's amazing. And Paul, I can fix that for you. There's no problem. We can have a little chat about that after the podcast as well. But I want first to thank you for this strong reminder that building's a business. It's rarely a straight line. Your journey shows what happens when someone stay focused on purpose with their values, even when the path needs to change. I really want to thank you to be on this podcast, Paul. I love the vision, what you want to bring, and the how you share it with intentionally to people. And that's the reason why I think you're really mean. Um, you really meant what you're saying today on the podcast, and I felt it also. Thank you for that.
Oh, great! You're welcome. And it was great to be on. Anyone listening that wants to work towards their new home, we do have a lot of resources. Our website, ecobuilt.com/podcast, is where we have specifically a list of builder questions that you can download. We also have access to over 100 designs, passive house designs that you could start your journey from. And we also have a cash incentive for anyone that's looking at starting the design process in the next 12 months.
Hmm.
So
And
hopefully, yeah.
that's cool. All right. So I'm still talking to you to if you're listening. Paul's story is about patience, long-term thinking, and building system that truly serve people. And AI and automation are not just tools. They are real competitive advantages. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next week on the AI Optimized podcast. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.